Well, first and foremost, thank you for your service. And I know that's a cliche thing that a lot of people say, but your service in particular matters a lot because you don't ignore the atrocities that take place within the United States military and can also speak to what is going on right now in Ukraine in a way that is not biased, because we don't need that crap. And we're getting it all day, every day. And the debates on social media are completely out of sight, out of mind. You even have people so much as supporting Putin and what he's doing, which makes no sense. But we also have to recognize that there are motivations behind this. So whoever wants to jump in, from your perspective, based on the intel that you have, why is this taking place? Our observation is always that this is all about money and power. There is apparently a massive amount of natural gas resources within Ukraine. That seems to be the most logical reason that this is taking place. Whoever wants to lead off, share your thoughts as to why this current conflict is taking place and how we'll get to ultimately how it's going to conclude. Yeah. But right now, why do you see this currently going on?
Anybody jump in?
Karen, lead us off.
There you go.
Okay. Why is it taking place? Yes, there's energy issues. I think on a micro level or on a regional level, I mean, it's taking place because those two countries can't get along. They're not getting along, and they're not getting along because one's threatening the other and the other's threatening the one. So there are for a long time huge hostilities for a long time. Meaning, I mean, we can go back and we've heard the Holodomor and all these things. So the hostilities between Ukrainians and Russians, that's old. Okay, that's been around. The language is different. I don't know how many people noticed we are not allowed to say Kiev. We must say Kyiv. And the reason is our late recognition of very much cultural and political differences between Ukrainians on the east and Russians on the west. And these are Russian Ukrainians. I mean, these are Russians that live in Ukraine. So, and they're Russians that have declared their independence. I mean, two of those provinces have declared in 2014 their independence from, and this independence was recognized in terms of the Minsk Treaty. The Minsk Treaty that was put together talked about these independent Russian republics. They're overwhelmingly Russian, and they're on the west, and they don't. They have declared themselves independent of Kyiv, if you will. So we have this ground. The politics of the culture on the ground, and then you have the U.S. and NATO, and we could talk about that a lot. Quite simply, Ukraine is a I don't know if you want to call it a pawn, a chess piece. It is something that the U.S. does not value as Ukraine per se. It values it as how it can enrich itself through Ukraine, and also how it can torment Russia. And why do we want to torment Russia? I don't know, but there's reasons for it. If you look at the U.S. history, we don't go. I won't go too long, but we haven't won a war since World War II. That's a statement of fact, but it also reflects a frustration amongst many people in Washington, because they see that as a sign, and it is a sign. It is a sign they should not ignore, but it's a sign that we're not the superpower that we thought we were. We cannot bring our will to bear around the world through military force, and actually we can't do it through soft force either, because we've lost a lot of respect through some of the things that have happened. We carry a lot of debt in this country. We're talking to Russia. We've got 30 trillion in current debt. Russia has no debt to speak of. I mean, they don't. So Russia can finance its war, and we have to continue to borrow to go to war. So the rest of the world sees this, and they see our track record. They see what many of them would view as corruption and arrogance and that kind of thing. And so they don't respect us. They don't respect us like they should, or like we think they should. Russia is a symbol of the future of a multipolar world, and the U.S. is resisting that. And we don't care if Ukraine goes up in flames. We don't care if Ukrainians die. We do not care if there are 6 million displaced and refugee Ukrainians in Germany and Poland. We don't care about that. That's not what the U.S. issue is all about. The U.S. issue is, how do we get back up on that pedestal of global superpower? And we're playing it out in Ukraine.
Great point, Karen. Dennis, hop in. Definitely want to hear your thoughts. Regarding again, we do have a machismo problem in this country, and right now you're seeing the drum beats for war like hasn't been seen in 20 years.
Yeah. Well, let me just share something with you. I'm gonna go from a different perspective for Karen, and don't take this wrong what I'm about to say. Okay.
Sure.
Early on in the process, I had some sympathy for Russia. I did, because of the fact, if you go back to President Reagan, Gorbachev, tear down this wall. And I had an opportunity to go over once that was happening on a congressional delegation trip. And when the wall was, in fact, I got a piece of the wall as we were all gathering pieces of the wall. Now, why do I say at one time I had sympathy for Russia? Well, to be quite frank with you, after that, we, the United States of America, we continued the Cold War. And why do I say that? Well, one of the promises that we made, I don't know if it was on writing, but we did make it verbally, was that we would not expand NATO. And it didn't take long before we started expanding NATO. And that was wrong. I mean, as we value our security, other countries value their security. And so Russia valued their security as well. Now, when I said in the beginning, okay, I could understand their concern. But now I have no sympathy whatsoever for the government of Russia, because what they're doing now is an atrocity. It is crazy. I mean, they don't have any concern of the civilians that are caught in the middle, as Karen so eloquently mentioned a few minutes ago about Ukraine being as pawns. They are pawns in the Soviet Union and the United States of America's Cold War that has never stopped. Now, when you talk about there are folks that are, calling, for war again, this is one of the reasons why, and I hate to say it, Matt, and I hope you be a great politician. I took my turn trying to run against Steny Hoyer a few years ago. And why? Because, he was supported and voted for the Iraq War, and he never at one time, if you know my background for the team there, I was one of the overseers for our war wounded over at Walter Reed, the old Walter Reed in Washington, D.C., and then we all moved over to Bethesda. And from my recollection, never did he once visit a war that he supported and voted for. So I decided I was going to run against him. Now, it depresses me when I hear all the politicians calling for war. We need to do a no-fly zone. I tell you what, we can't. Karen can probably tell you, she has some time in policy, and I followed her in OSC policy. It was easy to do a no-fly zone in Iraq, Southern Watch and Northern Watch. Southern Watch where we protected the Shias, and Northern Watch where we protected the Kurds. And it was easy to do that. But if we do any small form of a no-fly zone, we're going to be in a war, because a no-fly zone consists of preventing air and to include missiles. And so to stop that, what will we have to do? We will have to shoot down aircraft and missiles, and we will be caught right in the middle of a war. Now, what do I think we should do? As I stated earlier, I am just absolutely upset and mad as I could be at what the Russian military and the leadership are doing. So I do personally think that we should provide them support in the way of arms to be able to protect themselves. I really do. Now, what is the military meant for? I'll tell you right now, as a person that spent 28 years in the military leading, I've led over 100,000 men and women accumulatively. I will tell you, I am anti-war, but I'm not anti-defending yourself. And Ukraine should have that opportunity to defend themselves. So that's where we can talk more. I want to give Matt a chance.
100%. And you brought up a great point, Dennis. And this is why having somebody from the United States Air Force is so important, because people really observing civilians online comment about a no-fly zone. I'm just like, seriously, do not comment on this, because you have no understanding of what this means. You can't have a little bit of a no-fly zone. You either have one or you don't have one, and that's that. Matt, hop in, brother.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me here, and it's great to actually be on with Karen. We've been a member of a couple of organizations together for a while, but we've never actually, I think, done anything together like this. And Dennis, same. It's really great, and thank you for what you did at Walter Reed. Thank you. I really appreciate that. It reminds me of you're talking about Steny Hoyer. I've been a senior fellow at a think tank for a number of years now, and about 6 years or so ago, myself and my research assistant decided to ask senators if they'd ever attended a funeral for someone killed in Iraq or Afghanistan. And we did it the way we did all that type of questionnaires, and we dropped them off, and we emailed, and we phoned, and she followed up with each office individually. And, you know, when it came back, we had out of, you know, probably there were 97 or 98 senators in office at that point, right? Only 2 responded to our questionnaire, and they have both attended funerals. And we had said this would not be, no names would be utilized. The rest, no one responded. And talking to these offices, our assumption was these men and women had never been to a funeral for someone killed in Iraq or Afghanistan. You know, so the fact, as Dennis was saying, that these wars don't touch the people that begin them, that sustain them, that fund them, that cheer for them. I mean, how many members of Congress right now are calling for a no-fly zone? And as Dennis said, have no idea what that even means. Right. I mean, I think with most people, when you talk about a no-fly zone and you say to them, you know, a no-fly zone begins with the United States and NATO firing missiles into Russia to destroy Russian surface-to-air missile batteries. That's how it begins. And then the Russians respond by sending missiles into Poland and Germany. Where do you think that all goes to? The planes come into this 3rd, 4th, 5th stage of it. You know, I mean, people just don't understand what we're actually talking about here, let alone the idea of escalation. You know, and this idea that somehow war is controllable, escalation is controllable, nuclear weapons are usable. I mean, that's what terrifies me, is that there are those in both the United States and in Russia who believe that each nation's military possesses usable nuclear weapons. To get back to your original question about why this war has come about, you know, to agree with Karen and Dennis, and there's multiple reasons, a lot of historical reasons. It's very dirty. Like most wars of invasion and occupation, it's incredibly dirty. The fault can go on to both sides. Certainly, condemning Russia for its invasion and occupation is very clear to me, but also condemning the United States and NATO for pushing Russia continually. Look, in 2014, the United States is engaged in a coup as part of the larger Maidan revolution in Ukraine. They're engaged in the coup that ousts the pro-Russian president, democratically elected, corrupt, but democratically elected pro-Russian president of Ukraine. What do you think Vladimir Putin's going to do? And what he does, right, by what occurs in the East with the declaration of independence by 2 Eastern Ukrainian republics, by the seizing of Crimea, you know, why do we think that then pushing him is the continued way to go forward? Look what happened when we did this coup, what he did. So why do we think that he's going to, this is a man who rides around shirtless on horseback. Why do you think he's going to back down? And it scares me because this is what happens with Iran. I have many Iranian friends who I talk to about this who say exactly this. Every time you Americans do something tough guy-ish, militarism, you kill one of our generals, that only strengthens the reactionary forces in this country. And the same with the Chinese. The Chinese now for more than 2 decades have been saying, if you don't stop driving your aircraft carriers up to our coastline and threatening us, we will respond.
Thanks for watching. If you want to support our mission to transform politics into service, please like this video, subscribe, follow us on social media, and consider joining our Patreon, where you'll get early access to our interviews as well as other exclusive content. Links are in the description. Peace out.